Listen, I don't champion proliferation, but the fact is, if you have a regime that's not threatened, you could probably develop the internal consensus to get rid of them, because basically, they're useless in ordinary wars. All the nuclear weapons we had didn't win in Vietnam. All the nuclear weapons that Israel had nothing to do with the Yom Kippur War. And so we have the ability, by not threatening to overthrow regimes, to create a climate where they won't have any incentive to create.
Bruce, I thought we only had you for 20, but I've learned the producer we have you for about 10 more in the next segment, so now I'll have time to get to my questions. But we're about to go to break. I want to pose the questions to you now, and we'll come back. What, then, is the real strategy of the Fortune 100 and the big mega banks manipulating our government, Israel and Europe, England? What do they want out of this destabilization? Why would they want to put the Muslim Brotherhood in all over the Middle East? Why would they want to put al-Qaeda in Libya when Gaddafi had been playing ball for 7 years and taking total, Western investment? Why? Why do they want so much destabilization? Why don't they want to just be friends with everybody like Ron Paul has said? Bruce Fein, constitutional lawyer, Ron Paul advisor, straight ahead. By the way, he's got his new book out, and it is powerful. American Empire Before the Fall, available at Amazon and other bookstores everywhere. Barnes & Noble, Bruce Fein's new book, American Empire Before the Fall, and a large portion of the proceeds goes to the Campaign for Liberty. And see, these global interests, they're just working the levers of the American empire that we paid for. And we don't get anything. It'd be one thing if it was like the British Empire 200 years ago, where if you were an Englishman and served it, sometimes you could actually get something out of serving the empire. On average here, this is not the case. And I'm not endorsing an evil empire where you actually get some of the loot. I'm just saying in this one, you pay for it in blood, treasure, your name. America now is this example worldwide where dictators and thugs and oligarchs endorse their torture, their secret arrest off of what we're doing. The Egyptian police have named themselves Homeland Security when they rubber bullet people and arrest them now and torture them. I mean, this is an amazing transformation we've seen. Bruce Fein's our guest. So Bruce, you heard my question. What is the thinking of the global elite? Because they're debasing Europe, they're debasing America, they're debasing England, they're debasing Israel, they're debasing Australia. They're wrecking all of their own power sectors, whereas in the past we had some, corrupt leaders sometimes, but they still understood the basic idea of not wrecking your own command base. So I guess we're seeing the Nero or Caligula type hubris, the insanity. What's your view on why they're doing this and what the end game is? Why put al-Qaeda in charge of Libya?
Well, I think that there are two driving motivations here, one for politicians and one for what you call the military terrorism complex. But I think, Alex, we need to understand that empires are not smart. That even if they think what they're doing is good for them in the long run, they destroy themselves. That is, they can be very, very stupid and foolish. Indeed, that's what caused Mr. Gibbon to sit at the corner of the dilapidated Roman Colosseum and to ask why was it dilapidated after it had such a brilliant, obelisk status and iconic status for so many centuries. So we can't believe that just because they're doing it, there's any wisdom behind it. But now we can get to the short-term motives. I think that politically the reason for this drive for empire and intervention and meddling everywhere is this kind of thrill. It's sort of an animalistic thrill of domination for the sake of domination. It was captured in Julius Caesar. I came, I saw, I conquered. And so presidents get in and they say, well, gee, I don't want to worry about minimum wage. I want to conquer the world. That's what the presidency is about. Madeleine Albright, Colin Powell, what the hell is it? Have the greatest army and navy and air force and marines in the world and not use them. We got to use them. And there is this sense of, okay, this is my identity of just acting like a bully on the playground. It gives them thrill if you're an adolescent, and that's why it's not just in the places you talked, Afghanistan, Iraq. I mean, nothing happens in the world. Burundi, we want to interfere in Burundi or the Central African Republic or Nepal. Anything, we have a foreign policy position on it, instead of saying, we're interested in what happens in mankind, but we just need to be worried about America making it as perfect as we can, and our example can have influence, but otherwise other people got to take care of themselves. But this idea of meddling everywhere, wanting to play all roles, it reminds me of Nicholas Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream, where he wants to play all the parts in the play. You know, that's what and sort of a sense of grandeur by doing that. And then the military terrorism complex, it does it because of the money. I mean, just staggering sums out there. And how many of the audience know that this very day we are spending $350 million in Afghanistan alone? In Afghanistan alone.
Or look at the billions. Look at the billions for the naked body scanners.
Yeah.
And the insider trading right there of Chertoff putting the order in and then going to the company to actually profit from what he did. And then Congress gets caught insider trading and says we're just allowed to do this. It's staggering how they flaunt it in our face. So let me ask you this question then. Looking, historically out there, you mentioned the megalomania, the arrogance of Newt Gingrich. Studying these politicians, they really enjoy going to the parties, getting the awards. A normal person just wants to sit at home and read a book by the fire.
Right.
And so that's why we're kind of blind to them. And I agree with you. Ron Paul's the only person who truly is dedicated, has a grasp on history. The rest are a bunch of fawning sycophants that have sold out 1,000 times 1,000, and that's why they're where they're at. How do we beat these people? We do see liberty rising. Freedom is popular. How do you see these two opposing forces coming together? What's your prognosis on the future?
I don't think the future is determinate. In some sense, Emerson was right. History is biography. History, what's you, me, and what our audience does. And we basically are at the bottom of Mount Everest in this progress to try to recapture liberty as the center of our constitutional universe with Ron Paul. Certainly, I believe there's optimism because Ron Paul's ideas, although they're still attempted to be shunned by much of the media, got into the mainstream, at least with regard to the absurd billions, trillions lent by the Federal Reserve, and some people are more hesitant about these endless wars. But they're not the majority, at least at present. But you don't need a majority necessarily to prevail. It's the intensity factor, Alex. Andrew Jackson once said a majority is one man or woman with courage. And what we need to have that resolution that we're going to go out, we're going to argue, we're going to write, we're going to vote, we're going to protest. We may lose, but we're not going to give up. And it may well be that Ron doesn't win this time around, although I have a healthy optimism that he's going to win Iowa because of the dedication of his people. But the critical thing to understand is politics never has an end point. There's never going to be one victory where you get across the touchdown line and then you can slacken off, because human nature is inevitably going to gravitate towards the lowest common denominator. It needs thrill, it needs leadership, it needs the influence of example by the like of Ron Paul and George Washington. So we've got to understand that our quest is never ending. Every generation is going to have to win it for itself and keep it for itself, because the natural course of mankind is tyranny, whether it's tyranny by one or tyranny by the majority. It takes a very, very educated and committed, a kind of society to celebrate liberty and take some risks. And that is what we have to recognize we're about. Not just our generation. We have to pass on to our successors this intensity factor, this commitment to know, no, it's never going to end at the end of a particular election. And whether we win or lose, it is the ideas, and this is what Ron knows more than anyone else, certainly of all of his rivals, the ideas that is going to lead us as to how we spend our time each day, protecting liberty, shunning big brother government, and craving the kind of independence that gives us a self-fulfillment and pride of being a human being that responds to the adult commands of virtue, wisdom, and magnanimity.
And ladies and gentlemen, that's Bruce Fein without a teleprompter, Ron Paul without a teleprompter, Alex Jones without one. We have researched. We are passionate about freedom. We don't need teleprompters. And so many people are sold on the idea that being involved is boring or a chore. But I'm here to tell you, 17 years into the fight, ladies and gentlemen, or more now, that as Thomas Jefferson said, it is the animating contest of liberty. It is animating. It is exciting to be informed. It's exciting to study history and politics and law. And as you learn more, it starts connecting, and you learn more and more, and you realize how much you don't know. And then you accelerate your learning, and then you become humble in time and space. You realize it's about the human species. It's about the journey. It's about empowerment. It's about destiny. And then you look at those who don't even want to know about history or those who don't admire humanity's great deeds. Then you feel sorry for them. And I think in the final equation, that's the crossroads we're at right now. Bruce, final comments on that, and then tell us about your new book.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I've been in Washington 43 years. The greatest thrills are not winning lawsuits. It's being out there and arguing for the highest principles that animated our founding fathers and doing justice to those who have sacrificed so much before so that we can live free and to have freedom of press, freedom of speech, freedom of inquiry. And that's just got to burn in you. And it never goes away. It's not like you get to a stage of retirement where you no longer are involved with fighting for liberty. The great thing about the quest is that it never ends. Right up to your last dying breath, it'll still be stimulating you, giving you that kind of adrenaline to keep you active and participatory every day of your whole life.
And it's that instinct that we owe all civilization and creativity and everything good. It has all flowed from that instinct for liberty and freedom, that drive.
Yeah. The very first person who stood up and said slavery and subservience is bad. We all owe great homage to that individual, even if it didn't succeed on that particular day. And you're right, it's the torch of civilization that we're trying to keep alive here. Now, with regard to, my last book was American Empire Before the Fall. I think it expands upon all the ideas that we've discussed today, Alex. I am involved in another book. It's going to compare the motivations of the human species compared to the lower species and to try to compare and contrast and suggest, is it clear which is the superior animal, and where we've got to restore, the ultimate, the values that have been the guiding light.
That's right. The globalists always want to tell us that we're not special because they know we are. We can direct our own development. Give us 60 seconds on your view on that.
No, absolutely, we can, and this is what I'm suggesting. We have minds, we have brains, and the brains are to try to extract what Lincoln called the better angels of our nature by imitation, by leadership, by character, so that and recognizing and living really for the ages, not necessarily physically, but so our character will speak to someone born 1,000 years from now.
Yes,
because they will struggle for those same reasons. Why are we here between ashes to ashes and dust to dust? What is virtue or not? And in that sense, our lives are eternal. That's what we have to strive for.
Well, that's how you live on, is by transmitting that information. And it's not arrogance that you want your ideas and information to be passed on. You're passing the baton as well from those that came before you. It is love of the species. It's a love letter to the future. It is truly how we live forever, not just through our progeny, but through our ideas. And more, this great foundational truth, Bruce, is being echoed by people. It's not until tyranny comes in like a flood, to quote the Bible, that the Spirit of the Lord lifts up a standard against it. And you and Ron Paul or others, and just briefly getting back to Ron Paul before we let you go, look at how 4 years ago he ran. He's probably gotten 5, 6, 7 times the attention, the energy this time. Yeah. Then when he didn't win, the establishment said, oh, look, all that wasted. No, it built a platform. Now look how far he's getting. And he may not this time. He actually may. But it may be Rand or somebody else down the road. It's that focal point. Look at how 20 years ago he couldn't get one co-sponsor, or 16 years ago when he first got back in Congress, 17 years ago, he couldn't get one co-sponsor. Now he passed audit the Fed in the House, and he didn't win this time. But resistance is victory. The system is scared. We've got moles inside Bilderberg, Bruce, and they are scared of Ron Paul. Why? Because it's now the hottest thing on campus. It's not mainline republicanism or communism. It's now liberty. They're scared. They see the youth, and not the ones playing Xbox that don't care, but the real youth that are going to be the 5-10% are